Right now, try to make a decorated pot on Bedrock and you'll find there is no recipe. Even if you have the pottery shards, there is no automatic way to craft them. You have to manually place them in the crafting table because that's what's popular in Java. Although there are some Java features like the /buildbiome command, which if you try on Bedrock will not work whatsoever because despite coming in the last update, which was meant to be the same on both platforms, it isn't available on Bedrock. This is a parity issue, but couple it with something like the Raft, which is excellently designed visually but has zero code changes, and you can start to see where some of the problems with 1.20 lies. Really great development held up by weird directional changes. Today I'll be talking about that as well as my recent trip to 4J Studios, developers of the now defunct console edition, to talk about exactly what's going on up there and some of the things that I learned and that are really important about the old free editions of Minecraft and what the developer from this last edition's been up to, as well as the issues the other two versions are kind of having keeping up with each other. So that's what we're talking about today. It's gonna be a lot of fun, but first things first, I think it's important to note that 1.20 has been out for almost a month now, and it is still a blast to play. I genuinely am enjoying every structure and every new adventure situation I come into much more, and that is what Tales and Trails set out to do, and it's doing it really well. In the same way, and in the same vein of the Nether update, making the Nether actually an interesting place to explore, the 1.20 update has made going out on trails, going out, making your own tales about them, it has made them much more exciting, and that is something that is really good. I think it is rare that an update theme really nails its objective, at least in the last few years. I mean, if you look at the Wild update, did it make Minecraft more wild, or was it just a small batch of content, kind of akin to the Exploration update of the past? 1.11, for those of you unfamiliar with the old days of just a few years ago. But 1.11, wow, all the way back in 2016. Who could imagine the dark days of then? Man, 2016 is 7 years ago. But if we go back to the 1.11 update, it's called the Exploration update, but really it was go explore and you might find a woodland mansion. One rare possibility doesn't make the rest of the game more worthwhile, so the Exploration update failed in the same way the Wild update failed, whereas the Nether update did a really good job in making the Nether a brand new place that really felt as fresh as it did the first time you came into Minecraft, and the Tales and Trails update succeeded and went above and beyond at making the exploration aspects really worth doing. There are also all sorts of new reasons to build. It should be noted, 2 new types of color palettes. I think this update does a lot of good in those ways, and I need to say it nailed its objective in terms of what it adds to Minecraft, but what it doesn't nail is what it thinks that adding to Minecraft really means, and what it even thinks Minecraft means. This is the really weird thing that no other game has the problem of. What do you mean when you say Minecraft? Genuinely, you can't have a conversation at the pub, you can't have a conversation on a plane or on a train, or even I spoke to someone on Tower Bridge about Minecraft recently. It's a very pretty bridge in London. It's the one that goes like this. I don't know how it happened, but I was talking to them about Minecraft, and it's always tricky to have that first conversation about, so which Minecraft, just to clarify. And the clarification of which Minecraft is meant to be less and less important. Mojang as a developer want it not to matter which Minecraft you're playing, and instead you just be like, yes, 1.20 came out for both versions, and in terms of the release date, it happened exactly the same. It happened within an hour of each other for Java and Bedrock. That's good news. In terms of the actual structure of the update, the major features, you don't have to say, oh, the sniffer, that's a Java-only feature, or oh, the camel, that's a Bedrock-only feature. Almost every player who plays 1.20 has the same rough experience, and that is good in general. I mean, that's really impressive, I have to say, as a baseline, but what I think is the problem is the direction of Minecraft, because updates themselves have this clear theme, developers have this really great idea, they start talking about it, they make a great gameplay trailer, and it's really clear what's happening, and then somewhere between that, in the 9 months since then, there's a lot of clearly meddling that happens along with like, well, what does it mean to release an update for Minecraft, which leads to things like, yes, there are commands which came out for Java where there was no attempt made to bring them to Bedrock, or if there was an attempt made, it wasn't public. There wasn't like a, we tried and we failed. It was a, oh yeah, we didn't assume that commands had to be available in both versions, so the updates immediately get slightly different. And then also, the structures which you find in this update, for example, are different rarities on Java and Bedrock. Finding the desert well for archaeology is double as likely on, the Bedrock version, whereas finding nether fortresses, which is way more important because the trims are so hard to find, and also the nether fortress is essential for beating the game, so something so key and so important, which they just updated a little bit and gave you a reason to go to, double as likely on Java as it is on Bedrock. The fact that it's double in both cases, by the way, is really odd. There's got to be something about the game code working there, but such a simple thing that makes the update so wildly different to the end player, something that makes the Nether Fortress not just a thing you find everywhere, but a thing you have to strive for. These are the things which couldn't get fixed. And I'm not here to make the argument that everything in Minecraft has to be perfect all of the time. It is a giant game developed by hundreds of people. The code surely looks like spaghetti at this point, but there is a really essential point to say here that, like, well, if these bugs are going to start piling up at the bottom, eventually they're going to start affecting the gameplay features, and I think that's what started to happen with this update. And there is the wider problem of, like, well, what have they either, parity is the commitment they've made. A lot of people have always publicly stated, we want Java and Bedrock to be the same, but if at the same time, every time there's an update coming out, you fix a few parity issues, but you introduce more, again, when 1.16 came out, that's when they committed to parity, but 1.16 was different, and obviously that was the first time, so now 1.20, they've had 4 updates to try, we still have major differences between platforms. It's only in the case of commands that technical players will be using. In the case of Java, they have fill biome, they have another one of, like, replacing IT. There's a lot of weird stuff you can do only on Java, whereas on the Bedrock version, the /camera command means that you can, like, actively make 2D platformers without any mods or any crazy stuff required. The level of depth that people are going to get from that is wild, and even, by the way, it's only available as part of the betas, but the whole editor mode where you can treat Minecraft, basically, like the entire 3D view that you used to be able to have with Java tools only, that's built into Bedrock now. The directions of the game really are diverging in quite huge ways, and I think this is why it's that, this is what I mean when I say developers know what they're doing in terms of, this is what Minecraft is as a game, we can make it better, but in terms of the, I feel like somewhere in the organization, they have a debate as to what does the game mean. Does the game mean there's 2 versions which they want to take in the same direction? Because, you can go in the same direction at different speeds, and, it doesn't matter if you're going like this, but they're officially what they're saying is that Java and Bedrock will always keep, will have eventual parity. That is the goal. But if you keep seeing them go like this, if you keep seeing them go side to side, then how can you ever assume that they're going to reach the same point? It's the definition of a parallel set of lines is they never reach the same point. But I think we're doing the exact opposite with Java and Bedrock, where they're always getting slightly further and further apart. There are always more clarifications you have to add about, like, well, this works really easily this way on Java, but if you want to do the same on Bedrock, there are always more clarifications about, oh yeah, this is the version of the game where there's the giant button which asks you, which begs you when you come into the game, please buy microtransactions. We don't like that you just bought the game. We want you to buy more stuff. This is the version of the game that, has little pop-ups that say, hey, did you know we're selling stuff? I know there's the marketplace button when you pause the game, but you might not know about the new summer sale, and so trying to pretend they're the same is just fundamentally not going to work. I think the only reason to have this ambiguity about saying publicly it's gonna be the same one day and then privately having basically no real plan to getting there is so that you can have people say, yeah, don't worry about playing Bedrock, it's totally gonna be the same one day, but ultimately adding all these features to Bedrock even that aren't on Java also leads to the same feeling from Java players. It's much less, I'd say, in general, Bedrock players are more jealous of Java than Java is of Bedrock, but it is still a very serious issue, and that's before we start to talk about certain features and updates, like the raft, which is, just my personal pet peeve of this update. The raft is a type of boat. It's made from bamboo instead of any of the other types of woods that looks entirely different. The major boat design of having, it's like a mug, right? So a mug, you can see how the water stays in a mug. I'm going to pour some water in right now. Do you see how it stays in there? For audio listeners, I just poured water in a mug and it didn't spill all over the ground. However, there is water in my mug now, but imagine I have a phone screen, right? This is flat, there are no edges, and when I pour water on this one, I break my warranty and it's a very, it's a foldable phone and the screen breaks and it's all terrible and I don't want that, but it would break, right? You wouldn't be able to keep it, you wouldn't store water inside of one, which is the same logic for what, like for air. The very form and function of these two things is different. Now imagine that you say, yeah, when you craft ceramics, sometimes you get this, and sometimes you get this. I mean, one of them's a phone screen, one of them's a mug, but it's no real issue. Wow, a great mug that came from ibxtoycat.store too. Really love the quality of this mug, huh? But, the truth is that, like, when you say they are the same when they're different, it creates some confusion on that level, but then the weirder bit is the fact that, like, okay, so they're gonna have the same boat-like properties, that's fine. People can suspend their disbelief. I think I'm being a bit of a pedant when I say, oh, it doesn't have curved edges like the boat does, but where I do think the issue lies is if you're going to make it look entirely different if you're going to have an entirely different thing and call it a raft and not a boat, and then at the very last second say, but there's no different changes. Whether, you know, like I have this whole design worked out, it's going to look different, it's going to seem like it behaves different, it's going to have a different name, which implies something much more crazy, and then it's actually going to be exactly the same in every other way. You make the rest of the, game seem inconsistent. In the same way, if you try to work towards parity, and then when Minecraft and Java and Bedrock work towards parity, which they do sometimes do, there are all sorts of features that slowly change from one to the other. When they work towards parity but then make huge changes to the left, it's like, oh, did you not really think that we were coming together? And they're like, oh, I'll pull back a bit now, and then they go forwards and backwards. It does seem a little bit confusing and weird. Having a clear sense of direction is something that is absolutely crucial, and that is something that I think is lacking with the overarching Minecraft theme. I think 1.20 was down to a point, and then it's the details that went missing. I think Minecraft's idea of having two Minecraft versions that are exactly the same is down as an idea, because one of those is C++, and therefore will work on every platform out there, right? Like having, like a Minecraft Bedrock exist and having it work, cross-platform between your Xbox and your phone, between your Xbox and your PlayStation, even your PC and your PlayStation, is a really big achievement. It's a really big thing that they've pulled off there, but... and this is the really key one, but if you're going to have that really big revolution achieved and then also not quite be sure what you're doing with it and not quite be sure if you really do want to have the same versions or have a way of doing it, that seems a little bit, kind of cheesy. I think this is, so a lot of people like the modern world of corporations is corporations don't just need to do things that are practical. The world of business is the world of getting stuff done, right? It is in some ways, it's the opposite of the world of art. That's why art and business kind of collide. But it's important that when you're doing stuff, you do it for a good reason. And companies love to say, we're going to do this really great thing. We're going to reduce our carbon emissions to negative. That's our plan as a company. But if you don't set up actual realistic steps towards your target, you're just saying things that would be nice. I think I will cut all homeless people in half by 2025 is a really nice, it's a really mean goal. I think I will stop homelessness by 2025. It's something I can say and you'd go, but what are you going to do, Toy Cat? Aren't you a Minecraft? How are you going to do that? Isn't that 2 years away? But if I just say like, oh yeah, I got this vague plan, I'm going to solve everything, then you should look at me and say, well, that's just ridiculous. You're just saying a nice thing. And I think that's the problem we get to with Minecraft. And I think that's the problem that a lot of Minecraft updates kind of suffered from. Like when people said, when the Wild update came out, people were excited by the idea of wildness coming across everywhere. And then they didn't work out how they were going to do it. Having a goal, having it be achievable, but also worth doing, is something that is such a big thing across all aspects of humanity, but I do think it's especially big in Minecraft. However, a quick little, this is the Deep in the Mine, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. This is back for a short little run, and something that is important to mention is the fact that this episode 12, by the way, wow, been gone for a while, this episode has been sponsored by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you a truly sculpted look. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. I think this is my first clothing sponsor, by the way. I mean, it's my first clothing sponsor, I'm pretty sure. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/pool and use promo code POOL for a free Yeti-style tumble. Yeti-style tumbler, by the way. You get a free bottle of water with your shorts. Your shorts that are going to be good. Sounds good to me. A free Yeti-style tumbler is great. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise. And that is the word from Bird Dogs. And honestly, I do have to say, this is the season of summer, right? It's the season where you want to be ideally not getting so hot. I get very hot a lot, and so I think it's actually important to deal with that in lots of ways. Drink lots of water is a really important first step. Ice water if you can. Don't pour it. Don't just pour it in mugs or your phone endlessly. Actually drink it. And the other thing you got to do is maybe get yourself some clothing that's good for that. Because if you wear a winter jacket in the warm months, do you know what happens? You create global warming, I think. We're pretty sure that's what happens there. Anyway, that's definitely approved words from the sponsor there. Speaking of approved words, I do want to also mention that this show Obviously, you might not know, but it is available on Spotify. I'll link it down below. It's mixed in with a bunch of other podcasts. It's a part of the whole way that this show exists as a whole. But yeah, deep in the mine, look at me having a sponsor, not just rambling to myself for no reason. There's like a real company paying me to do it today. Speaking of being a real company, this is something that like I think Mojang would like to do. Having a clear goal is important, but I want to talk about 4J Studios because they invited me up to Scotland recently, and for full disclaimer, they did pay for the flights. Obviously, I fly a lot anyway, but it's always cool when a company does that. But also, they paid my accommodation for a night so that I could go there and see the thing. And I think that's important to mention as like full disclosure. Like I can hype up 4J all I like, and I've done it before too. But obviously, if I'm talking about something, if I have something positive to say, it's important you know my bias is going into it. You know, this is an important part of like integrity on anything. Is like you might not think that a freebie influences you, and I think for most people it doesn't. But it's important to let other people decide that. Like if you think that I'm saying positive things because of that, that's an opinion I think it's you should be able to have. You know that's why having the hashtag ad for say the sponsorship run what we do is really important also, because like you know I'm not going to advertise products that I actively hate, but I also need you to know that like yes, that is a company paying me to say things, and if they gave me that list of things to say without money, maybe it wouldn't go the same way. If in the same way that I might not say, please subscribe to the video if YouTube subscribing wasn't a feature which would allow you to see more things. Or I wouldn't say, join the channel or go to ibxtoycat.store if I wasn't making a cut from those purchases. Understanding like a tiny bit of like, even if it's not a direct motive, understanding any financial motives is super important. And I'm allowed to say whatever I want about 4J. You know, there's that one guy at 4J, hate his guts, but I... if you're watching this, that one guy at 4J, yeah, I know who you are. But I think more seriously, it's important to talk about, at least a little bit, 4J and the interesting struggle they were put, or not struggle, but the weird position they were put in as a studio when Minecraft PlayStation 4 stopped existing. For those unfamiliar, there's Bedrock and there's Java, but there used to be Legacy Console Edition, which was the actual, not cross-platform Minecraft, but the multi-platform Minecraft. Bedrock was only for phones. It was called Minecraft Pocket Edition, and then they released Minecraft for Windows 10, but there was also Minecraft Java. So it was Minecraft Pocket Edition, but it also ran on PCs. And so then all the console versions, your Xboxes, your PlayStations, your Sonys, your Nintendos, your Sega Dreamcasts, that was all done by 4J Studios. They made 7 separate editions. Really, 7? Every time I think that, I'm like, nah, that must be overcounting. But the PS Vita edition totally counts. Anyway, they made 7 separate editions of Minecraft. And, you know, Jesus, by the way, really, every time I have to say, wow, that is a lot. But they made 7 editions of Minecraft, and then they committed to updating these for X amount of time because they actually were the game developer behind it, and they had stake in doing so, obviously, as you might expect. And so what happened is they made the next-gen versions of these games, but then just a few years after doing so, and allowing people to upgrade for a small price, they set up a lot of good systems to allow people to basically move Minecraft from PS3 to PS4, from the PS4, wow, the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, from the Nintendo Wii U to the Switch. They actually set up a lot of infrastructure, surprisingly, so that people could keep their games and keep their worlds and the things that they loved. However, a short while after releasing the last edition that they did, I believe it was the Switch edition which released last, it was actually revealed that Bedrock was intended to come out for all these versions. It came out very, very slowly. There was the weird Minecraft for Windows 10 leak that happened. People, they were testing if Minecraft for Windows, which was effectively Minecraft for phones, but on Windows, would work on a console, and they tried a bunch, and they actually got it working. And so once they got it working, they said, well, right now is clearly the time to release this, because just before this big announcement, they said, by the way, Android phones, iOS phones, and PC can all play together. Any Bedrock version is going to be capable of cross-platform with any other Bedrock version, which is why it was actually a big deal when they announced Minecraft will be coming to consoles as the Bedrock edition. However, a little bit of a flaw came in, and that is that when it released for the Xbox edition, it was kind of buggy. So it took a few years for them to bring it out for the Switch. It took years for them to get a deal with Sony where they could bring it out over there, and in the meantime, 4J Studios developed this, and so it was only 2019, which was like years after the Bedrock Edition first launched, that they actually finally, stopped updating the PlayStation Edition, and at that point, 4J Studios was no longer the developer behind any Minecraft version that actively existed. They are the last third-party Minecraft developer that actually had a base game, and they made a version of the game which was very much universally loved. However, once you stop developing that game, the question is, what does a game developing studio do from here? And that is to me like a real case of fascination, because what would you do in that situation? You've built basically an entire studio up, it existed before, there were people working at 4J, but the studio had to massively upsize to make Minecraft on 7 platforms, and then they're suddenly told, oh yeah, you don't make Minecraft now. They had presumably a very good run of having made Minecraft for 7 years, going from making various ports of games to making the biggest game of all time. It's a big thing to have on the list of games and the things they've done, and obviously, as well as that, it has to be said just a little bit that having the money from selling that many copies probably is a good thing too. And so they were put in a position that was still unique, which is, for the last 4 years, what have they been doing? And publicly they've said next to nothing. They've only announced now, after all this time, we're working on 2 things, but that still means in 4 years they've done 2 things. And why is that? And that's because of something really interesting. One is the fact that they are, they're doing well as a studio, and they haven't had any time off. Instead, they've done something which every creative industry wishes they had this ability to do it. They've been making games and then saying, if it's not good enough, we can just throw it away. The concept of this, I believe, was usually called game jams. It's put a lot of time into making ideas, develop the idea. If it sucks, you don't have to make it. When you're a fledgling studio, or when you're a fledgling artist, or whatever else you are, content creator maybe, who's just gone full time, you have to make a certain amount of things, right? If you don't, if I spend 8 months making the perfect video, then in the 7 months without video, I haven't made any money. I mean, in reality, you make residuals from your previous projects, but when you have very little of a back catalog, you can't make big risks, and you can't throw away bad stuff. You have to just make bad things not so bad. But if you are a game, if you are a game developer studio that's had a very successful run of projects, you get this dream situation of being able to just say, we can throw away bad projects. And ultimately, in that time, that also means you can polish concepts really nice. And so that is precisely what they've been doing. There's been a bunch of games which ideas for artists and various people to work on, and then there's been a lot of stuff happening elsewhere, mostly with a lot of the people who did tech previously. And so they've had 2 separate projects, one of which is well known. It's Manic Mechanics. It's a very cutesy artsy game. I'm really enjoying playing it. After this podcast tonight, as you watch this, I will be finishing up that game, and I'll let you know. I can't review it actually or anything. I can just say I like it. It's good. It might be a little short, but there's a whole area I haven't unlocked yet, so maybe it's a little longer. But it's a really good game. I like Manic Mechanics. But then there's a second thing they're working on, and that second thing is just described as big thing we can't talk about yet. And so obviously I can't say too much about it. Under the clarification, I am under NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. I could say it, but this video would just be removed, and I would have serious ramifications. And more importantly, I think I would be probably putting their studio at some risk, and they wouldn't want to show it to people again. It would be a breach of trust as well as a breach of legal agreements. But at the same time, I do want to say that yes, the studio is doing some really fun stuff, and also I think it must be nice because for the last for the 7 years they're working on Minecraft, they were making someone else's game, and they were making that game to certain standards. In the same way that, right now, Minecraft has kind of 2 teams, Bedrock and Java, and they're pretty co-equal. There isn't a team that dictates things to other people. There are creative directors, there are leads of text, and there are all these roles that can dictate down, but they mostly work neutrally across both versions. However, something incredibly interesting is that, as much as both these things do work across both versions, and they do have the same team, they did have 4J Studios, which was not the same. They could just be like, we're making this, later you will make that too. I don't know how it's going to work, make it happen. And there were lots of ideas that 4J Studios had to improve Minecraft console. Some of those ideas even made it into the Java and Bedrock versions. Some of those ideas still need to make it there, but also something interesting I learned is that they actually were, I'm not required, but they were heavily, encouraged to make unique content as well. Some of this unique content was their own ideas. So, making stuff like the mashup packs. The Mass Effect mashup pack was a thing. They reached out to the Mass Effect guys. They got it made. It was a really cool thing. But also, the mini games were something they were required to make happen, and so they did. They made unique content for the console edition, which is still some of the best stuff out there, by the way. It was a really big launch, a really big release, in addition to making all the title updates. But the fact is that they managed to do that at the same time, and they managed to make fun mini games, which is, I think, the model they basically can go for now. They can work on something big, have the big key coding branch happening over there, while having a lot of people work on the fun, artsy side of making new content for existing things, which is kind of the goal you would really want as a studio. So anyway, what are the overall insights from what I'm saying, though? The overall insight I would say is, first of all, that 4J is a resilient, I'm more impressed by them now than I was previously. Previously, I was like, yeah, wow, that is a big thing to have to do as a studio. Now I can see that, like, they aren't... At this point, I think a lot of people, after having a big success, maybe one the size of Minecraft Console Edition, would just retire, give up. But, I think it's a really bold move to double down, to say, yeah, we did well. What if we did even better next time? There's the idea for a one-hit wonder is widely known about, and so to actively try and be like, no, I think we can do well, even if it's not as big, we're gonna go for the second hit. That's huge to me. But the other thing that I think is huge is that, like, keeping the same model of trying to keep multiple projects on the go is a really important thing. This is maybe a lesson, if we take one thing from this video, one of those is, like, corporate structures are confusing, and you can say one thing while doing absolutely nothing to go towards it. So that's a huge thing. And the other thing I would say from this video is that the way these giant companies behave with their successes is something that you can learn from, whether positively or negatively. If you have a big success, trying to win that into second ones is great, but also trying to do multiple big things at the same time. Counterintuitively, it sounds like a bad thing, but limiting your exposure to one bad idea, because ultimately, creatively, no matter how good you think an idea is, you don't know how good it is until you put it into the world. If I spent 8 months working on a video, making it perfect, and then that video was the history of feeding birds in Minecraft, maybe no one would watch it. Maybe it would be the worst idea, and you'd rather just watch, my top 5, ways to destroy a woodland mansion in Minecraft. The truth is, it's really hard to actively know what resonates with people. This is one of the hard things about being a YouTuber. It's one of the hard things about being an artist or a game developer, and it's one of the hard things about life as a whole. There are moments where you need, when you're having a conversation with someone, like this podcast, which is definitely a conversation, you need things to land, and if they don't, it can be really tricky. And so that's why it's always worth having a backup, having a second thing that is just as good or almost as good as your first thing, so that if your first thing sucks, you can get straight onto the second thing. Have a backup plan in life, because if you don't, something goes poorly. If you bring one parachute, do you know what happens when you don't have one? You know what happens when it fails? Well, as we all know, there's the famous phrase that you can skydive as much as you can skydive without a parachute, just only once. I guess you could also, actually the modern version of that, sorry. Anyone can go and see the Titanic in a submersible once. Anyway, with that said, I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. I want to give a quick update because it's back after a while. This will be back over the summer for a few episodes. I am trying things out a little bit more over here, and it is a very curious setup we have here in terms of how it is set up and all that stuff. But I'm giving it a shot, and so as part of that, I need to mention, not only should you check out the link down below, if you do so, it does make me look better. Also, like the video, it's a very good thing. But also check out the show on Spotify, because that is a key thing that is part of my deal to do this podcast in the way that I do it. I hope that you enjoy it. It's a podcast. It's a link to lots of other things going on there. But yeah, I will be getting a few guests on to do some fun things over the next few weeks, and I'll be pushing my comfort zone a little bit with how I talk to people. I do most of my recording solo. I'm very much a introverted, don't want a scheduled time to talk to people person, but I'm going to try and do that over the next few weeks to bring you some interesting people with some Minecraft perspectives that you might not have already heard of or had. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow I'll be streaming again, and also tomorrow the That's Future Me problem shirts launch, so look forward to seeing you there at ibxtoycat.store. But for now, thank you. For now, that's Future Me's problem, and for now, I hope you'll enjoy the show. Check out the links down below, because I'll see you next time. Goodbye.